So that's it for the reading. Any questions or comments or? Thoughts, questions? Yeah, James?
Well, again, very good stuff. It's great to hear different passages from the ones that I remember. And it occurred to me, there's a lot of sort of childhood memories. And have you guys been like writing since you were kids, or you just have really good memories?
So the question, because this is being recorded, was there's various childhood memories in the book, and whether we've been writing since childhood or whether we just have good memories of our childhood.
We have good memories and we're good fabricators.
Yeah. I mean, much of that is based upon childhood memories, but no, I don't know about Mike. I was not one of those kind of kids that you hear about that was constantly, concocting his own comic books or short stories when he was like 8 years old or something like that. So
I did a little of that, but not much.
Yeah. Any others? Yeah, Paula.
I'm curious how you write as a team. Like, does one person write and the other writes another piece?
Yeah.
And the mechanics.
Yeah. So the question was what the writing process is in terms of a collaborative novel like this.
The spark of the story came from Steve.
Yeah, you should be on the mic.
Yeah. The spark of the story came from Steve, and he proposed it to me at one point, this idea that he had, and he had some materials that he had written up. And then we created a very detailed roadmap of the story that was basically an outline form that was about 50 to 60 pages long. Right?
Yeah, it was kind of written almost like a cinematic treatment, if you're familiar with that form. So it was very visual, and it was about 60 pages long, and it had all the characters and all of the events and whatnot, and then that expanded out into the actual novel. So in answer to your question, Paula, it was not like we were, sitting, in the same room, banging out on a typewriter, going, I know, what about if da 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 da. It was more like one person writing some stuff, and then the other person kind of putting that through their filter, and that went back and forth for quite a number of years, actually.
What we did for a couple of years was to take the document and email it back and forth. So I would have it checked out for about 3 months, and I would modify it, add to it, hack on it, and I would send it back to him, and then he would look at what I had done, and then we'd have about
and the converse
we'd have
too,
about 20 phone calls where we'd argue over every line, and then he would check
hang up on one another,
and then he would check it
out. And
out.
you're still speaking.
And say like, I'm done with this.
No more. And then he would check it out and make his additions and changes, and then we'd hash over that, and so we'd email it back and forth for years, until finally we said, are we done? And we weren't sure,
but that's an interesting question and a good one. I mean, I often wonder the same whenever I hear about something that was quote co-written, like how on earth did they do that? So yeah.
But I think the good thing about working with Steve is that we really have our skills are like a Venn diagram where there's some overlap, but we really do different things, and that's a fortunate aspect of our collaboration, because we really have we have kind of different skills, and so I think together we do something that neither of us could probably do by ourselves.
Yeah.
You kind of remind me of Strickland and Randall, the way you go back and forth at each other.
Well, yeah, so you've read it.
I have read it. I loved it.
And that there are certain elements of the way our dynamic and the bantering back and forth and the arguing and yeah. So there's definitely some. So again, the question, the point was that we remind the reader of the two primary characters in terms of their dynamic and their interactions. Yeah.
You are both from the science field, and one of the lines that stuck out to me in the book was something, I dog-eared it, but something to the fact that if spirituality does not catch up with science, and science, you know, goes further than the spirituality, that eventually whatever, it will basically fail and fall apart. Personally speaking, how have you guys, what are your feelings on that, and the fields that you're in, and maybe what you've seen as scientists?
So the question was in terms of science and spirituality kind of catching up, if you will, with modern day science. Well, I think in many...
Well, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, for instance, is exploring what you might call the intersection between science and spirituality.
Yeah, there's an institute in Petaluma called the Institute of Noetic Sciences that was begun by actually one of the Apollo astronauts, Edgar Mitchell of Apollo 14.
He's also an MIT
yeah, he's like a PhD from MIT. He actually had kind of a spiritual experience coming back from the moon. A transcendent moment of instantly sensing kind of the oneness of the universe coming back from the moon, and started this institute there. And so they actually do rigorous scientific research, but it's based upon kind of a more open orientation to what is available to be investigated by the rigors of modern science. So they investigate sort of consciousness, and are things like ESP real, or are things like sort of precognition real. But they try and, the people who work there are real scientists with real advanced degrees, and so they're kind of exploring that. So that would be an example of a place that is in fact trying to kind of meld the two together.
And as quantum physics becomes kind of stranger and stranger, it almost goes off into the realm of metaphysics and if you will, spirituality, in my opinion. So I think what's happening after Newtonian mechanics and then the place that theoretical physicists are exploring right now, these ideas are so wild that they have implications that I think can inform a lot of different areas, and maybe in the future answer some of these questions that they're exploring at IONS, at Institute of Noetic Sciences.
Anything else? Yeah.
What sparked the idea for the book?
Well, the question is what sparked the idea for the book. I would say there were two primary things. One was Jurassic Park, which and that kind of just occurred to me one day in terms of blood, dinosaur blood in mosquitoes. What about blood on the Shroud of Turin? And kind of where would that take you if that was investigated? So that was kind of the basic genesis, but also the Contact by Carl Sagan, which is a hard science novel that is centered around a sort of a global earth-shaking event, which was contact from an alien race, and exploring that.
I think the interesting thing about Contact is that it explores the sense of awe about contact rather than having a battle between space aliens and us.
Yeah. It was a very, very different take than say War of the Worlds or something like that. It was less about the aliens and more about it also explored kind of the intersection and conflict between science and religion. That was what Contact was really about.
And you're right. Contact was a very consciousness-oriented. It was a psychological movie. I mean, it was the interior. It sort of lived in Ellie's mind. I mean, it was really about her experiences.
Yeah, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie or read the book, but it was fascinating in that you had this total science-minded, left-brain person who really had no beliefs in anything that couldn't be verified scientifically, and then she has an experience that is practically like a religious experience. She has what she is absolutely certain, contact with an alien race, but there's absolutely no way to prove it. So it becomes a matter of faith. Nobody believes her, yet she knows that it happened, and so it's like a very interesting concept in that way, because it took somebody who was totally left-brain, science-minded, who had an experience, a life-changing experience that couldn't be verified using her belief system. So,
It's a great movie, but the book is really good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I like the book a lot.
The Shroud or Contact?
Contact. Any others?
Well, that begs the question, and one of you lives in Southern California, so this is a question, I think, from Mike. When can we expect the movie?
We're working on that.
We were just talking about that today, actually, the movie, and nothing concrete,
Yeah.
but it's in process.
Yeah,
It's
we're
beginning.
exploring things.
Well, will you write another book? Is there a sequel to the Shroud?
Yeah. Actually, there are some fairly extensive notes for a sequel. Nothing in the writing stage yet, but yeah.
6, 8 years out?
Yeah, something like that.
We'd like to go faster.
Yeah. This one went a little slow. We had day jobs and that kind of thing.
We'll outsource some of it to India.
Yeah.
Stupid question. Have you seen the Shroud yourself?
That's an interesting question. Ironically, we as kids, we lived in Torino, Italy for 6 months, but I didn't even know of the existence of it at that time, and no, we have not seen it. I would like to. I think they just put it on display about 6 months or so ago, and I think they only do it about every 10 years. Thereabouts.
It is very strange that when we were kids for 6 months,
yeah.
we lived in Torino.
So we missed the window of opportunity for another 10 years. Yeah.
So speaking of locale, because I just got the book, I haven't read it, but you're talking about police in Israel, and so how do you, have you been to either of those places? And
The question is, have we been to the exotic locations of the book? And the answer is
Washington, D.C.
yeah. Unfortunately, the only place we've actually been to is Washington, D.C. Never been to the NIH. It's the wonders of the internet.
There is so much on the web now that you really can just bring up so much information that ideally, if you've been there, it's better.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But you can craft a pretty believable.
But even the stuff like the Bedouin scene in the desert, you can just Google like Bedouin, meals. So I think one more question, and then I think we have to kind of wrap it up and start the signing.
We want to sell books.
I think we would ideally like to. You want to support your local bookstore? Yeah.
Without giving the book away, how close is science to accomplishing what is suggested in the book as far as how far can we go?
So the question is, how close is science to actually being able to do many of the things that are suggested in the book from a genetic science standpoint?
I think that stuff can and probably will happen, and probably not that far away. And they're talking about cloning a woolly mammoth.
Yeah, there's actually
Where?
Jurassic Park. Yeah, I mean there is like like fully frozen woolly mammoths that you know they're actually talking about we could implant this in an elephant as the surrogate mother and have a woolly mammoth.
I think the Disney company probably has already bought an island. They're probably
So yeah, I think it might not be that far off, really.
Okay, I think that's
All right.
that's it.
Well, thanks for coming, everybody.